Hello and welcome to Inner Noise. My name's Gabriella and I'm a concert harpist based in London, and this is something very different for me. This is the pilot episode, so thank you for listening in, coming along on the ride. So the reason I'm doing this is because I started a YouTube series in July of this year called London Diaries. And I'm just sharing the highs and lows of being a musician, behind the scenes, the preparation, the going to the gigs, the conversations, sharing things that have happened, definitely a lot of coffee content. And this is now a podcast / an interview series where I'm just doing something different. I felt that in recent years, there's been a big movement in talks and actions of inclusion, diversity, frank conversations, and I think also difficult conversations. So this is my attempt at being part of the conversation and the shift. There'll be solo episodes just like this one, and interviews with working freelance artists like myself, discussing their career, promoting their work, but most importantly, chatting about who they really are and how they got to become the artists they are today. I think there's going to be hard conversations, and I've already recorded an interview at this point, so I know that there's going to be emotional conversations, but I'm so excited to start this passion project. And if I'm feeling brave, I might discuss literature, music and art that I love too, but we'll see about that. I'm sure I will be learning along the way. So in a similar vein to my YouTube series, I'd just like to start by saying that anything that I say is not gospel and is definitely not factual. If it is factual, I will state where I've sourced the fact from. But it's just a conversation. I really enjoy consuming any kind of content which makes me think, whether that be, I don't agree, why don't I agree? Or great, wow, they think exactly the same way as I do, and that is so amazing to listen to. And I really like to talk in that way too. So if I say I feel or I think something, that is definitely interchangeable. I have found in my late 20s, moving into my 30s, that things that I thought in my early 20s or when I moved to London about 11 years ago, I definitely don't kind of maybe feel the same now. You know, things change, experiences that you have change your mind about things. So maybe I will say something now that maybe in the 12th or 20th episode I might change my mind, but I'll try and reference back to why it's changed. So it's just food for thought. I think there will be times where I say things where I really can only feel it in a certain way, but I will try to be balanced and see things from different point of views. I have guests lined up in my mind, and they're people that I feel drawn to and inspired by in very different ways. And I guess I feel some kind of connection to what they're doing with their art. They're not necessarily all going to be musicians, but they're going to be people that are associated with music in some way, or absolutely artist in some regard, whatever that may be. Now I've gotten over the talking and talking into a microphone sat in my living room. I have definitely felt very self-conscious videoing myself for these YouTube videos, and it's slightly out of my comfort zone. I really like talking, but I think the thought of sharing something that you see every day with the whole of the internet, not knowing where it's going to go, is a little bit scary. And I think also listening back to my own voice has been something to really get over, because I have a regional accent. It is definitely diluted, having lived in London for 11 years, but I do say year as in 12 months. I do say ma'am, I do say tough instead of tooth, which people love to comment on, which I actually really don't appreciate, to be honest. But anyway, that's my little grievance to start with. I'm going to get started on the first topic that I want to talk about, and that is some articles that I saw around the final of the BBC Young Musician, and discussing how none of the finalists were from state schools, which is an age-old discussion about the situation of funding in state schools. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about two different kind of aspects of it that I felt at the time of reading these articles and seeing things float around social media. But I feel like maybe it's nice to just start by sharing a little bit of my story and where I came from and where and when music came into my life and how, just to give a bit of context while I'm talking about this topic. So as I've already mentioned, I am Welsh. I was born in, well, I wasn't born in this town, but I grew up in a town called Blaenavon in the South Welsh Valleys. That sounds very weird to say. South Wales Valleys. And I went to, my whole education was state. So I went to a primary and a secondary school that was a Welsh medium language primary and secondary school. So I am bilingual. And then I went to an English sixth form, and then I moved to London to start at conservatoire. I initially was at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and then I transferred to Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance in Greenwich. And what a journey it's been. Honestly, I'm saying that and I'm thinking about, baby me going to primary school, and I'm thinking about where I am now, and it's just what an amazing 31 years it's been. Anyway, I've got lots of stories to tell. I started the violin and flute, I believe, at the same time. My mum will definitely remember this way better than I do. I wish I could remember it. People always ask me how I got started, but there's no elaborate story, really. I remember bringing home a form, and you could select what you wanted to learn, and it was like violin, woodwind, brass and harp. You couldn't learn singing or piano, and I don't believe you could learn the cello either. I don't remember anyone learning. Anyway, I wanted to learn all of them. I think you could only choose two. And I was like, no, so we started with violin and flute, I think. And then I moved on to the harp as well. So I was playing all three instruments. And I remember the first time I got an instrument, I think I had a harmonica at home and a penny whistle. And I also had a recorder. I do remember playing the Lord of the Rings theme. I remember playing The Little Donkey on the recorder. What a traumatizing experience to listen to that. And then I remember my mum buying a violin for me, and she got it from this kind of, it wasn't Gumtree, but it was something similar that she had in her workplace. And I remember she picked me up and she had it in the boot of her car, in a black bin bag. And it was a full-size violin, and I definitely wasn't big enough for it, but it didn't stop me, let me tell you. And I'm not sure I was even very good at it, to be honest. Actually, looking back, it probably sounded horrendous, but I loved it. And I think I still love the violin so much. And I think probably when I was learning my instruments, even though it was probably the one I was the worst at, it was the one that I loved the most. Anyway, so that was that. And then I started music lessons in school, and I had music lessons in school up until I think maybe the first year of sixth form, where I had private lessons then. I started going to my local music centre, so it was called Torfaen Music Centre, and it was part of the Gwent Music Support Service, which is now I think just called Cerdd Gwent Music. And I remember crying the first time I went in. I was so worried. I was so scared. I can't even put it into words. I remember, I'm an only child. I don't know if this contributes to it, but I remember just being so nervous going new places. I don't know, it's strange. I didn't want to be left out, but I also didn't want to be spoken to. And I was just so worried. I was worried about probably not being good enough, not knowing what I was doing. I think it's just the unknown, isn't it? I'm sure it's very normal for children to cry as much as I did. Anyway, I had the best time. I went to the tuck shop. I which was run by volunteers, I think just mums that were there with their children, so they just ran the tuck shop. I can't remember what we played. At some point we played Pirates of the Caribbean theme, and I just had the best time, and it was just the start of such a formative and transformative experience for me. It was the most incredible part of my childhood, and I feel very confident saying that. I think every time I talk about it, I feel very emotional because it was somewhere where I was so happy, so inspired, safe. It gave me the most incredible opportunities. I met some of the most lovely, lovely people, like-minded children. One of my best friends I'm still friends with today, and we were part of the music service, so we did orchestra together, we did a harp ensemble together, and we both live in London now. We're both creatives. She doesn't do music, but still in the creative industry. And gosh, we always kind of recall being on tour in Poland, and we slept in the bathroom because our hotel room smelt of smoke. That is just like a fun memory. But I went on 2 tours. I went to Poland, I went to Germany, played at the Albert Hall, played at Birmingham Symphony Hall. I achieved grade 8 in 3 instruments. I had the time of my life, and I am forever grateful to Gwent Music for providing me with what they did, and for every single individual that was part of that music service, because I don't know anyone that had a bad experience. I think we just had a great time. Everybody had different little groups. Everyone was included. It was just absolutely fantastic. And it was all free. And wow, how accessible, how incredible. I think we paid for the tours, and I'm sure there was payment for different aspects of it. I couldn't say what. My mum will remember this way better than I will. But it was just incredible. It was absolutely unbelievable, and I'm forever indebted to them. And I think that's partly why I want to start talking about this, because I want to talk a bit more openly about my background and where I came from. Anyway, and then I came to London and I studied at Conservatoire, and I think that's kind of when I realised, wow, I've been a big fish in a small pond, and actually now I'm in a really, really big lake. I'm a very small fish, but also I'm quite a different fish, because I did really realise when I moved to London, and I was, I'd moved into residential halls, that most people that were there were from private school, music school, or had been to junior departments and lived in London. And I was very much in a minority of people that didn't have that upbringing and didn't have music in their life in the way that they did. And it was really, really strange and really shocking. And I remember it was something that I don't think I processed at the time, and I'm not sure I've processed even now, but I do remember it really did shake me, because I couldn't believe how different my life had been. So that's that, I think, on that topic. I will talk about more kind of personal stuff at other points, but I think around this topic, that's probably, all of the highlights of the story. Okay, so I just want to start and say that obviously I am absolutely pro the government giving more funding, excessive funding. No, that's me dreaming. Funding for art and music in state schools in any regard that they could. I'm so pro that. Okay, so I'm going to start by just being honest about how I felt that these articles that I read and social media posts, kind of how they made me feel. I think that I felt very uncomfortable that an enormous feat that these young people had achieved by reaching the final, and obviously one of them won, and all of the children that had taken part and performed just in general were of such an exceptional high standard of playing, technically, musically, all in different ways. I think it felt slightly strange that that was being maybe tarnished or diminished by articles then saying, oh, well, none of them were from state school. I think that where we now have so much social media led journalism, a lot of fast paced kind of writing, what seems like that anyway, maybe slightly shorter, less researched articles. Sometimes it feels like journalists attach kind of negative commentary to things that maybe shouldn't be there. It didn't feel well placed, I think, at the time. Made me feel a little uncomfortable because did it feel a bit sloppy, maybe I want to say. I think there's an element that the media do, and just generally, we kind of, think about the X Factor. They always, that sad music would come on and someone would say, oh, I run a dog's home or something like that. And then they're singing, Mariah Carey or something. We do maybe glamorize from the, in inverted commas, the bottom up. But I think if I want to, and I do want to be balanced here, I've met a lot of people from privilege in different ways, whether that be financially, opportunities that they've got, materialistically, I guess, through the financial position that their families are in. When you are set at a bar of, your parents have a lot of money or they are incredibly successful, or you come from a family that has been, is old money, you're at this point, you're born at a point of privilege. So you might get more, or most likely you will get more. You might get a better education. You might get, a better, let's say we're talking about music here, so a better instrument, better quality of music lessons, for example, possibly, all of these things, better experiences. But you're also starting at a point of possibly being in the middle or the upper part of, like, let's say, if we're going from the bottom up to the top, if you see what I mean. So there's an expectation that, hey, you need to do this really well and you need to be good at it, basically. Whereas if you kind of have no expectation, you can go all the way up. But I don't want to then just make out, well, they're not working hard as well. Possibly it's easier, but then let's not also forget the toll that maybe it takes when there is an expectation placed on you because maybe your parents are very successful at what they do and success is almost an expectation for you. I think let's consider that. And I think the other thing we should also consider is possibly these children actually, they're not necessarily, just because they didn't go to state schools doesn't mean that they're not from lower economic backgrounds. They could be on scholarships. Of course, none of that is kind of mentioned, and did we know? I don't know. I didn't watch it myself. I have watched it in previous years. I watched a little bit of the semi-finals. But yeah, I mean, it's about the young musician's story, isn't it? It's not about their socio-economic background. It's about what they're attaining in terms of their musicianship and, what they're bringing to the competition. So that probably wouldn't have been discussed. But I think let's not forget that, because I do remember, this isn't a fact, but I do remember having a conversation with somebody who was actually a bursar at a music school who was telling me that the majority of the students are actually on full scholarships there. So yeah, that, swings and roundabouts, that's just food for thought, and I'm just putting that out. We don't need more articles. We know the facts. We don't need social media posts for musicians like myself to share, to say, oh my gosh, do something about it. It does a little wave of something. It creates something and then it just dissipates again. We don't need that. What we need is funding for organisations that are already there, absolutely doing their most with what they have, and they need more money. There are people out there who are incredible music educators and organisations that simply just need money. Like, think of the Benedetti Foundation, and if you are listening from abroad and you don't know about the foundation, definitely check it out. They are doing incredible things, and every time I hear Nicola Benedetti talk about, her intentions with the foundation and just talk about state music education in general and just music for children, I just couldn't agree with her more. So I will link some things in the description of this episode, and anywhere that you find this, if you're wherever you're listening from, however you're listening, there'll be something for you to read in addition. So yeah, I think that where I was kind of feeling, having read the article, to summarise, was that you know, can we just champion these children for a sec? You know, they've just done something amazing, and it did feel tarnished by this other conversation that, okay, it's part of it, but it just felt like I just wanted to just celebrate them for a little moment, because what they're doing is, you know, it's taking up time in their childhood. They're sacrificing a lot to hone their craft and, you know, make it incredible from a really young age, and like, let's just tell them, you just did absolutely amazingly, and power to you for that. But I think that now I feel like I'm rambling, and I probably should get back to the fact, which is that there wasn't representation of state school children in the BBC Young Musician competition in general, and frankly it's something that has been noticeable since, you know, well, all the times I've watched it, for sure. I never felt like I saw anyone that was like me in it, and I think it did make me feel when I was a child that maybe it wasn't a space for me. There wasn't a space for me because I didn't see anyone there. But hey, we're in 2024 and we need to do some changing. As I said, to introduce this podcast, we are having more discussion and thought and action with inclusion and diversity. We're having more difficult conversations, more open conversations. And I think it's time to really start working, actioning, moving, not being scared, being confident. Which brings me on to why it's important. And I'm going to talk some points that I feel are important, things that have sprung to mind, things that I just want to share why I think that investing in children in state schools and their music education and their access to music is important, coming from the perspective of a working musician from humble beginnings. I hate saying that, but it's true. And I think it's important to be honest. I'm not from a privileged background. I'm from a working class background, as we would call it in the UK. And I have wheeled and dealed, scammed and schemed. I haven't scammed. I've probably schemed. And I've worked so hard to get to where I've gotten to. And all I can want for myself is that I keep moving up and it keeps getting better, and I keep helping other people along the way, and I keep striving and thriving, as I keep saying. And that's all I could really hope for myself. But I am very aware that I am not from a place of privilege, but I try to be well-rounded, and I also try to not be jaded by that. Say, oh, well, no one ever helped me. Because actually, you know what? There are really good people out there that are willing to help and support. And you've just got to be open to seeing those people and hearing them. And sometimes they appear out of nowhere and when you least expect it. Here are 4 points as to why we should be investing. So, Keir Starmer, the government in general, if you are listening, I know you're not, but these are my thoughts. Whoever is listening. Confidence, number 1. When I was thinking about why did it benefit me so much, I kept coming back to this word of confidence. What am I? Am I confident? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a word I would describe myself as, knowing myself well. However, I think that there are just many layers to this. I think to learn a skill, no matter your background, to learn a skill well makes you feel accomplished. It makes you feel good, satisfied. It makes you feel like you're doing something right. So to learn a musical instrument, to be part of an orchestra, a group, a band, a little music ensemble, just makes you feel great, doesn't it? It makes you feel like, gosh, I can do this. I'm not sitting in a lesson learning this and writing things down and going home and doing homework. I'm kind of doing this with my body, my mind, my hands, and I'm making something. And that just brings up a feeling of real accomplishment. And I think then as well, kind of public performance comes into it. It takes a lot of nerve to get up on stage or to walk into an exam room where there's just one other person sitting and kind of perform something that you've been working on for months. You've honed your craft, you're going to now demonstrate it. And when do we do that? I mean, maybe if you do a presentation in school, but yeah, I think that, I'm thinking back to when I played at, it was Birmingham Town Hall. I played Carl Jenkins' Trosa Garreg, and it's harp and orchestra. And I remember, walking out on that stage and just thinking, well, it's only you that's going to do this now. You know what I mean? Like as a soloist. So to do that as a young person or to have the opportunity to do that is amazing. And I think there's this feeling as well of bringing everyone together. If you're doing like a community project, say you're in a music centre or even a school, to do a concert and everyone comes together, no matter your background, your culture, the language that you speak in your home, how much money you've got in your bank account, you're all sitting in a room and you're experiencing something together. And again, when do we do that? I'm not sure we kind of do. Nothing's springing to mind anyway. So yeah, confidence. Instilling this sense of achievement and instilling a sense of you can do it, you can get up on stage, you can perform, you've got this. And doing it with others that are in a supportive environment alongside you. So on the topic of others, belonging, I think that, we when we were in school, when we're younger, it's hard to belong, isn't it? You come from different homes, you might come from different backgrounds. As a child, you might be thinking, gosh, I look different to that person. And with music, it's just kind of this open door. It's like, come on in, sit down, take that place in the orchestra, sit on that seat and be part of something. So there's a sense of belonging. It doesn't judge you. It just is there and you can just be part of it. And I think that whether you're having the most incredible childhood or not the most incredible childhood, to go somewhere and to express how you're feeling and be part of something and belong to an organisation such as like a music centre, for example, is just so invaluable, isn't it? It just makes you feel good. All signs are pointing north. It's a great feeling. And it's definitely something I experienced, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of being somewhere and being valued and kind of wanting to be there, but it feeling like I was meant to be there as well. So then on another level, let's talk about the culture coming from that space of belonging. I remember there was a piece of music I wanted to talk about, which was, we played it in Greater Gwent Youth Orchestra. That was the name of the ensemble. It's hard to remember them all because I was truly a part of so many. And we played Scriabin's Poem of Ecstasy, which now as an adult, I'm like, God, I can't believe that we did that because it's such an intense work. But I can remember, coming to the end of a residential course that we went on. I remember we were playing it through and I remember this feeling that just shook me to my core. This just intensity of emotion that I've just never felt before. And obviously, years to come, I've felt it many, many times from music. But to experience that, to feel that level of expression in your body, I keep asking this question, but where else do we feel that? When do we feel that? it's something similar to kind of heartbreak or grieving a death of a loved one. It's like this intense feeling that you just think, God, when is this going to be over? But it wasn't a bad feeling. It wasn't something awful. It was actually this feeling of just being totally charged. It was, is that me quoting Billy Elliot? It was electricity. It was that feeling. And I don't think that's because I was, going to lead this career, because I definitely didn't know it at that point, and I didn't know what music meant to me. I just knew it was a really good thing in my life. I just think that's what music did for me. And I think that there's a feeling of, think of all of the music that there is. You've got, what else did we play? We played Mahler's Adagietto, an expression of love and for Alma Mahler that he wrote, and that feeling of love in the music, and like then you play it and you feel it, and it's not words, it's just something that takes over you. And to give children access to something that isn't language, it's a different language, right? It's musical language, but it's a feeling. To feel that love, to feel that power, to feel that electricity, to deny children of that, I just think is the most awful thing, because I think it can just spark something inside of you that can just carry that for the rest of your life in the most positive way possible. And I feel really passionate about this point now I'm talking about it. My goodness. And I think as well, it's not limited. It doesn't, again, I said about the open door, it doesn't choose you, does it? It just happens. Like, it's not like, oh, can you afford this? Oh, you can have this feeling then. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you've got minus £200,000 in your bank account or you've got plus 2 billion. You can just feel that, can't you? It's free. It's a free feeling. My goodness. It's like a hug. It's like a hot chocolate. It's like a zap of a lightning bolt. Is so many feelings, and wow, to feel that as a child and just be able to experience it from doing, I don't know, some like drumming or some, I don't know, maybe not recorder ensemble. I don't know if I was getting that from Little Donkey, but certainly from playing Little Donkey in school, but certainly from orchestral chamber music. I remember playing Pirates of the Caribbean with wind band, ba-da-dum bum, ba-da-dum bum, and it's like, oh my gosh, this feeling, I'm smiling thinking about it, because it was just an emotion that was just so incredible. Anyway, borderline rambling. My last point. The title of this last point I've written down is investment. So I think it's a plea. By investing in music and art in state schools, you're investing in such a diverse range of children and young people with totally different backgrounds and stories. And is that not where great art comes from? Finished reading this book called Monsters. What do we do with great art by bad people? And it's a discussion around great art and what makes great art, and is it partly the great artist's stories? So is it the stories of the people creating the art, good or bad? And wow, isn't it true, all of the music and the art that I create is based on things that I've experienced, good, the bad, and the ugly. So if we've got, let's just say, I'm gonna think of people I know and think of their backgrounds and just say them. So let's say it's me. I went to state school. Maybe I shouldn't use myself. I should use other examples. So let's say, okay, I am a first generation British citizen. My parents have moved to the UK from Hong Kong. Let's say that's one child. Let's say then we have another child, a child who was born in Kenya, but now lives in London with their family. But they spent formative years maybe between 0 to 5 in Kenya, but they now live in London. And then what if we take a child who money has never been an issue, beautiful, beautiful home, parents incredibly supportive, great, wonderful, that's another child, so that's three children, very different backgrounds. And then what if we take a child who parents are paying for private piano lessons, but they go to state school. So we've got 4 different types of children there. Imagine them coming together and just talking like, oh, what do you have for dinner? You know, let's talk child language. So like, oh, what did you have for dinner last night? What did you do on the weekend? Where are you going on holiday? We've got so many different diverse stories there in how those conversations can go. Now think about their life and the stories then that become emotions and become thoughts and become things that they want to outpour into different things, whether that be writing, art, music, acting, poetry. And think about how that then flows into all of those different things. And then think about maybe hardships. Think about the highs and lows of those lifestyles and how that can be just so diverse. And then imagine it all being amalgamated. So they're all together doing this and they're coming together. So there's a sense of like unity. We're all doing the same thing. But then there's also like a sense of what is that giving and also where could that lead? And I think there's just nothing better than pouring your life into your music making. I feel in my 30s more confident than ever to be honest about the fact that that's what I do, because I definitely do it. And I would love to build my own confidence in talking about this and being maybe slightly more candid about how I make music and why I make music in episodes to come. Anyway, I haven't really come to a conclusion there. It's just more firing little points, talking about things, being a little bit balanced about it, and just things that have been on my mind in regards to this topic. But I will leave anything that I've discussed, anything that I feel like is helpful to kind of further reading or further thinking, if you will, on this point. I will leave that linked wherever I can, so do look for it. And thank you so much for listening, and please join me again. I'm so excited to see where this goes, but thank you for listening to the first episode ever of Inner Noise. Bye.